So I've been thinking, did I turn this off? Been thinking a lot lately about endings. At our church, we've been involved for a while now in trying to wrap things up, and not just, to end, but to really move our resources into the hands of these congregations that are going to succeed us. My own ministry is coming to a close. 41 years and counting this month. I started in August of '78. And, the end is in sight for me too. And I want to finish well. That's, I guess, my big ministry goal right now. I want to finish well. And I want our church to finish well. Our church is older than my ministry. We are now in our 71st year as a congregation, and I want our church to finish well. So I was thinking about the life of the Apostle Paul, and I love what he wrote. It's in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. This was right near the end of Paul's life when he said, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." And so a few thoughts I want to put in your mind this morning from the scriptures as we think about finishing well. And the first one is that our success in God's work is not measured in the same way that the world measures success. For us, in the world, what is success? The biggest, fastest growing, the most famous, the most popular. But that's not how God measures success. And once you truly believe that, if you ever do truly believe it, it will change the way you look at life. It will change the way you look at your life as a Christian. It will change the way you look at church. One of my predecessors at another church, folks told me that every Monday when he came into the office, the first thing he did, there were two big churches in that county. One of them was our church, and the other was First Baptist. It was a First Baptist church, and the other was First Baptist in a neighboring town. And they told me the first thing the pastor did when he got into the office on Monday morning is he made a phone call to the First Baptist church from the neighboring town. He said, "How many people did you have in Sunday school yesterday?" And then he would tell them how many they had. And this went on for years, this contest as to who was the biggest. Any conference that our denomination puts on, they're all about how to get bigger, how to grow faster, and so on. But if we ever could just truly grasp the biblical concept that success in God's work has nothing to do with bigger or faster growing or more famous or more prominent or all that, and has to do with being faithful. It would revolutionize the way we look at life. Prominence and importance or significance are not the same thing. The most prominent feature about me, probably physically, is my white hair. I found this out again a few weeks ago when I was trying to grow a beard. And all of my pastor friends started telling me, "You look like Santa Claus." What, are you going to get a job at the mall this Christmas? And I realized once again that, when you've got white hair, it's kind of the first thing people see about you. So I guess if you ask me, well, what's your most prominent feature? I'd say, well, it's my white hair. But the fact is that my white hair is one of the least significant things about me. It's prominent, but not significant. And if I were to make a list of the 10 most important parts of my body, white hair would not even sniff the list. It would be nowhere close, or hair at all. Heart, lungs, brain, kidneys, liver, and on and on and on would be on the list, but not white hair. See, there's a difference between being prominent and being significant. Our church will never be considered prominent, but we are significant because we matter to God. You matter to God. You may not be famous, and let's face it, no one in this room is. Nobody over in New York City is going to be thinking about us today, or reading an article about us in Us magazine or whatever. But we matter to God. Our church matters to God. Nobody's going to come write a newspaper article about us. When I was pastor over at First Bilingual in Pico Rivera. First Bilingual is one of the most prominent Baptist churches in California. It's the largest bilingual Baptist church. I hadn't been there too long when the state newspaper, the state Baptist newspaper called me up and said, we want to come do a feature article on your church. And they did. They sent a reporter down. The reporter interviewed me and wrote a great article. It was the feature article for that month's edition, and my picture was on the cover of the thing, and they wrote about all that we were doing and all of that, and it was so exciting. Well, let me tell you, what we're doing, what our little church is doing right now, as we're praying together and working together and moving our resources that we've accumulated over the years that God has blessed us with, as we're moving them now into the hands of other congregations, things that we've labored for, that we are now freely letting go of to move to other congregations, is of far greater significance than anything that ever took place at First Baptist Bilingual in its history. What we're doing is so rare. It is so rare for a church to do what you're doing, letting go and investing in other congregations. It's not, to use it's not jazzy or snazzy. Nobody's going to write an article about it, but they should, because it's significant. You and I are not just important to God. The fact that we are in this church right now is no accident. I think about how I came to be here. Of all the thousands of pastors you could have called, God led me here. And I think about my background as a missionary in the Spanish-speaking world, and here we are now in a city that has become 85% Hispanic. And as we've nurtured this Hispanic work here in our midst to reach a community that we are ill-equipped to reach ourselves. I think about the work I did with the California Baptist Convention, and how much of my time was spent with churches like ours, helping them to put their resources into the hands of others. And here we are with the same challenge. But it's not just me, it's you. God brought you here. The fact that you are here in this church is no accident. And I'm talking about some of you who are newer, and some of you who've been here for decades. Before you were born, God was arranging events and moving things around so that you would be a member of this church at this point in time. Your membership here, your belonging here is no accident. God had a purpose for you here. He has a purpose for our church. And that purpose is unique to us. When we stand before God one day, and we will, I know we will individually. I don't know if God's going to gather us as a church together or not. He may, who knows? If he does, I don't think God is going to ask us, did you become like the mega church down the street? I think what he's going to ask us is, were you faithful with the challenge I gave you? The tasks I gave you to do, did you do them? God chooses the task. We choose whether or not to obey it. Remember that saying? I think it's a military saying, ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do or die. It's like that in God's work too. I want us to do everything we do as a church for an audience of one. The world may not take note of it or care if they do. But God notices, and God cares. And I want us to be able to say, like Paul said, when we come to the end, I have fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I have kept the faith. Our faithfulness today will make eternal differences down the road. So let's stay faithful to the end. All right, let's sing something.